G'day everyone, welcome to the NRL Market Watch podcast, sort of pivoting to the Rugby League World Cup Market Watch podcast. Don't worry, there'll still be a smattering of racing associated with it as well. The usual suspects are in attendance. When I talk about that, I'm talking about goalkeeper extraordinaire, the number one seed up there at Top Sport, Tristan Merlehan. And looking at things from a different angle, we're looking at him from a different angle as well today, Gerard Condon from readingtheplay.com.au. How are you, gentlemen? And first of all, you better, I know that it was suspended markets until we get the full word on this, but an injury update, please, Tristan.
Yeah, g'day, boys. And after a week off, we're back ready to go this weekend with obviously the World Cup starting. But yeah, anyone wanting to bet on the Toppy Turtles futsal team next week, just watch Teamless because I think I'm one of the only goalies in the history to have had to go to X-rays on a foot. So I'm just waiting for whether it's a broken bone or whether it's just a soft old age injury. I'm not sure. I think it's probably the latter. But no, we've been in and out of the doctors this morning, and my 6-year-old daughter, I thought she was being very nice to me. She was all concerned, Daddy, which one's a sore foot? Is it this one or is it this one? And she grabbed both of them. So I was in a bit more pain as well before I left. So no, it's been a bit of an interesting old morning, boys.
Well, the really good news is I gave up playing footsies a long time ago, so I'm clear of that. Jimmy, we did have a week off last week with you gallivanting around the world, which we'll touch on in a minute. But for those who might have forgotten, and hopefully nobody has so far, we did across the podcast have an absolute clean up on the grand final. So a great result for us all there and for many good causes as well as many supporters. And now getting our teeth into the World Cup, I'm absolutely looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a great tournament.
Fantastic. Certainly, I know that, in my lifetime, this is the most anticipated Rugby League World Cup, and there's been different iterations of it over the years, but they've certainly found a balance now, notwithstanding the fact that they've delayed it for 1 year because of COVID. But you're right, Gerard, we should look back before we look forward. We say that all the time. Yes, outstanding victory by the Penrith Panthers. In the end, almost perfect on the night, 28 points to 12, the final scoreline. In what was a complete domination. They were, out there at the game, you could just see that, minute by minute, they just physically imposed themselves across Parramatta during the course of that game. It was almost a go-to-woe win, wasn't it, for the Penrith Panthers, Tristan, the way they dominated the season, dominated the final series. And I know you've spoken about it before, Gerard, over different stages, but Ivan Cleary trained to the minute the Penrith Panthers and thoroughly deserving in their back-to-back premiership.
Yeah, I was just obviously, I've been a big Penrith fan for a long time, and it was one of the easiest watches, I guess, in a grand final for a long time. You could just tell from 5 minutes into that game that they were just absolutely primed for it. They just dominated from go to woe, as you said, Jimmy, and yeah, just the way that Ivan had them absolutely primed to the minute was a phenomenal effort. They were in a little bit of trouble there in the prelim against the Rabbitohs, where everything went against them and they were down 12 points to 0, but they just steamed home over the top, won that so comfortably. And then from there, they were just, it just felt like all of those weeks off in the lead up were going to pay dividends at the right time. And it certainly did that. I don't think Parramatta went terribly either. I just don't think any side would have matched it with Penrith on that day. I think they were absolutely phenomenal. I think potentially their post-game celebrations leave a little bit to be desired, but their performance on the field is certainly one that you've got to tip your cap to, and it'll be fascinating to see how they come back next year. They've obviously lost Kikau, and I think the big loss is going to be Api Coruscant. So it'll be intriguing how they line up next year, and if they can find a couple of pieces in the puzzle to keep moving forward.
They were just a level above, weren't they? And at 28-0, I thought going into half-time, they'd actually left 2 or 3 tries out there in the first half. It could have been a massive blowout score at half time, and it could well have gone on to something like a 50-6 result. They ended up clearly covering the line. The 13 plus got home, and that late last try ended up getting the points over. So we cleaned up all 3 there. They've been the dominant side all season. It was nice to get the angles right in the grand final, because I think taking $2 or thereabouts over the last 6 weeks always looked a little bit under. In the end, it wasn't. and they were very dominant. And, I think, credit to Parramatta getting where they got, but I think the week before against the Cowboys, they were dominated in so many areas on the park, yet the Cowboys couldn't put them away. Once again, they were dominated in similar areas, and they were very lucky that it wasn't an even bigger result. But on they go, back to back. It's been rare. Only the Roosters, I think, in the last 20 or 30 years. And certainly very interesting watch, as you suggest, Tristan, into what happens next year. But a lot of that Penrith side are now playing in this World Cup, and that only makes for added flavour for some of these lineups.
What about an update for Pass It On clothing on the back of those runners we had going into the grand final, Tristan?
Yeah, obviously it was as Jared touched on, it was a good result there, and just getting the balance up for that figure, it's $738. So we obviously cashed in a nice big figure there in the middle of September. So we started again, and we've got the kitty moving forward nicely again, $738 as we push forward into the World Cup.
$23,000 was the figure that we raised. A lot of that thanks to Top Sport, quite obviously, and then our function that we had. So to Chris and Olga in the team, fantastic. We start again, not a bad starting point, to $738. Now, you might get us on the markets, Tristan, straight up for who's going to win this World Cup. I think there's a lot of people looking at, yes, Australia are the favourites, but are they deserving to be that short?
Yeah, well, it's as you touched on, Jimmy, it's probably the most exciting World Cup I've seen for a long time. Like, we've always had the Aussies, the Kiwis have obviously won it previously, and then England's always there or thereabouts, particularly at home. But the fascinating part of this market is that England's actually fifth pick at their home World Cup. They're $16. The Aussies very firm at $1.50. New Zealand there at $3.80. Then you got the two teams that have really come forward in leaps and bounds since the last World Cup, with Samoa at $10 and Tonga at $12. So they're the five teams that are the realistic chances of winning the World Cup. Fiji is 150 to 1, and my wife discovered there's an Irish rugby league side last night when she was watching Luke Keary on the news. They're 250 to 1, along with Papua New Guinea. So it certainly is a really good wide open affair. We got the top try scorer market. We got all the pools as well. We've actually got a good little fun market if punters want to get involved, because obviously we've got the Rugby League World Cup starting now. We've got the Cricket World Cup not far away, and we've got the FIFA World Cup not that far away as well. So we've got the three topical countries, Australia, England and New Zealand. You can back them to win 0, 1+, 2+, or 3+ of those World Cups. So if you think the Aussies can win all three, donations are greatly appreciated. They're 2001.
Yeah, interesting the way England are playing in the cricket. I mean, you discount them for the Rugby League World Cup, you discount them for the Football World Cup, quite obviously, but you just never know with that Cricket World Cup the way they're playing there. Yeah, go the Wolfhounds, the great Wolfhounds team. I think Luke Keary is captain coach of that team, so it'd be interesting to see how they play. Hey, Jared, you might give us an understanding of the way you've rated the market based on your numbers.
Well, Jimmy, we have four groups. So we have Group A and Group D on, let's call it the left-hand side, one side of the draw. So that's England, France, Samoa, and Greece in Group A. In Group D, we've got Tonga, Wales, PNG, and Cook Islands. I think the two from each of those groups that go through will be England and Samoa, and I think Tonga and PNG will go through the quarterfinals. On the opposite side, we have Group B, which is Australia, Scotland, Fiji, Italy, and we have Group C, which is New Zealand, Ireland, Lebanon, Jamaica. Now, clearly, we would expect that Australia and New Zealand will go through the quarterfinals and then meet in the semi-final on one side. I think on the opposite side, we're going to see Tonga come through, and I think Tonga end up playing England. I think Samoa might be in for some disappointment into the weeks ahead. My market, I probably have Australia somewhere around $1.50 at the moment. They're shorter than that. I would have New Zealand somewhere around the 325 mark. I mean, they've been 450 into about 380 over the last week. And then I think the only other one that I would entertain backing would be Tonga. And, somewhere around $12 to $14, I think they'll come through the opposite side of the draw. So there's plenty of different angles about whether you're trying to back somebody to make the final and win it. Certainly Australia dominate that market, or you might be looking for teams that might make the quarterfinals, or get knocked out in the semi-finals. So lots of different angles to play around with.
And you've got those markets up too, Tristan, haven't you? Who progresses through, who wins each group too. So if people have some thoughts around that, it's really interesting around Group B and Group C about who do you think. Group C, obviously Lebanon, but Group B, who progresses through with Australia? That's a really interesting one, Tristan.
Yeah, it is, and we've got the group winner and also the to advance market up. So for Australia, obviously, the Aussies are very likely to go through. Fiji is very short there at 102. So it does look like Australia, Fiji will go through our side of the draw. Then England, Samoa look likely. But the interesting aspect is Group C and Group D, where Lebanon have been well backed to proceed in Group C, where New Zealand's very short, but then Ireland were $1.50 and Lebanon's gone from $2.80 into $2.35. And then the other one where there's been a little bit of rough support have been Cook Islands at $5.50. The shorties on that side are Tonga and PNG at $1.14. So if you think any of the lower ranked sides can get an upset result there, then have a look at that, because there is a little bit of value for the third and fourth ranked sides in all of those groups.
Certainly one angle there that I'm very much against Fiji. I think in Group B they will be a massive disappointment. I think 103 to get through to the quarterfinals is being rated around what they've been in the past and not what I think presents here in this particular competition. They've left 3 or 4 of their best players at home. They've all of a sudden had to call in a new assistant coach in the last week. Watching their trial last weekend, I thought they were just absolutely horrible. I think Australia will do a big number on them in the opening week. This Sunday morning, our time. And I think Fiji may well be a major risk to get through, and that would open the door if Scotland are good enough to beat them in their group game. Outside of that, I think the other groups are pretty obvious who ends up coming through as your favourite. And Tristan's right, there's then a couple of different options who ends up coming through to the quarterfinal to pair up with the obvious favourites.
All right, so let's have a look at these games. Now, we are recording this early on a Thursday afternoon. So first game on Saturday night, our time, England up against Samoa. Sunday, early morning too, Australia taking on Fiji. But we've got the Australian side. Gerard, you said you've seen an England side. I can't find the England side. Can't find the Samoa side as well. So everyone, when it comes to markets and so forth, need to be a little bit patient around the different rulings that we're used to from the NRL or indeed other competitions where we're just not quite sure of some of the teams just yet. We do know the Australian side, so I'll get your thoughts on that. Mal Meninga's decided to play guys who didn't play in the grand final and giving them just that little extra week. We know that they're going to very comfortably go through to the final stages, the quarterfinals. So I'm in favour. I think he's doing the right thing, giving people a game. I don't think Daly Cherry Evans is going to play when Nathan Cleary's right to come back into it, and they might want to have that extra game for Cam Munster to get that combination going with Nathan Cleary. But to be honest, I think he's doing the right thing, getting everyone a game and giving those other guys a rest.
Well, I think the really good thing there, Jimmy, is that there's a lot of pressure and competition for positions. And so, yes, I expect Australia win comfortably this weekend, but I like the fact against a 38 or 39 point line that we've got guys wanting to really aim up. I'm sure Cherry Evans wants to put his best foot forward this week, as do a number of other players. And so I expected that Australia are full tilt and serious and really want to have a crack in that game. And I think there's some nice angles around a couple of the others. And, maybe Tristan might just take us through some of those markets and his initial thoughts on what the week one lineups look like.
Yeah, and as you said, Jimmy, it's been difficult over a number of factors to set the markets because obviously we don't have those team lists finalised other than the Australian team. My understanding is that the squads of 19 will drop 48 hours before the game, so that would mean that probably just after midnight tonight or after midnight Thursday night, by the time you've listened to this, the teams for the England-Samoa game will be out. So I would suggest Friday we'll have all of our try scorer markets up. We've obviously got the dilemma of how we price up markets when we usually have jersey of first try scorer options, and we've got a different range of markets in place. So that's going to be another fun one to look into. But in terms of the main markets, the England-Samoa game has been the best back because we've got a lot of shorties in a lot of the other games. But Samoa started this match slight underdogs. They're actually $2 we opened them at $1.80 England, $2 Samoa back at the end of September there, but they've been absolutely smashed. They've been back from $2 into $1.63. So very firm favourites. England out to 2.25 and 3.5 is the line. So certainly a big push early days for Samoa. It'll be interesting just to monitor those final teams. The Aussies are obviously very short there. Less than $1.01 against Fiji, who are 21. The market has shifted by a number of points already. We opened it at 34.5, and we've already got the line out to 39.5. So there's been some big moves already. Probably the other game just to look at, which is the other tight one, or at least somewhat competitive in the head-to-head, has been Scotland-Italy, where there's been a really strong go for Italy, both at the head-to-head and at the plus 15.5. That game's actually down to 12.5 now, and it's $1.24 Scotland, 3.95 Italy. So all the other games are pretty wide, and there's been a bit of action on the lines on the way through. But I think once we get those final team lists, it'll be a little bit more certain.
Well, if I go through a couple of those highlight games, the England-Samoa, this is a really, really important game. It opens the tournament, but the winner of this, I expect, ends up being the number one seed through that group, being Group A. The loser then ends up as the number 2 seed and would then play Tonga in the quarterfinal. So I'm sure that you would rather be looking to want to play PNG than Tonga. Secondly, Shane Warne, the English coach, who is ex-Wigan, very good motivator of men, very much about defence. I really liked how England looked in their trial. I think they're really well set up here. I think that they can win off the bat. I can't understand the push for Samoa. The big question for mine about Samoa is who plays 7, most likely Milford. Sawali I expect plays number 1. I think they're 2 weak roles in that particular team lineup. And they're only into England with probably 2 to maybe 3 short training sessions into this game. I'm keen about England. I think they're really well positioned here.
Yeah, no warm-up game for Samoa. England did have that warm-up game, and that'll be the first chance they get to play with Victor Radley. I only saw the highlights of that game, but I think how Sean Wayne uses Victor Radley is going to be really important. And you know, this is one of these situations where you've got this ball-playing lock forward that Australia will have, New Zealand won't have. In fact, Australia have got 3 of them. They've got Jake Trbojevic, who won't be asked to do that. They've got Cam Murray, who probably won't be asked to do that either. He'll play out on an edge. He'll definitely be in the 17, most probably definitely in the 13. And then you've got Isaiah Yeo, who will be that ball-playing option. England's ball-playing option is Victor Radley. So playing with him is not straightforward, especially if you haven't done that type of thing before. So it'll be very interesting to see how George Williams is going to cope with that and how the England squad cope with it as well. So reports I'm getting out of the Samoa team is that the professionalism of Joseph Suaalii is ridiculous. First to training, last to leave, does all these pre-training stuff. He's injury prevented, like he's just the ultimate pro, and the kid's 19 years of age. There is that question mark around his passing game, but look, he's not going to solve it in the course of this tournament, but he strikes me as the type of guy who will work at it so much that it will become a strength. And you can look at, in the history of the game, someone like Billy Slater, who when he first came into the game, he didn't have a strong passing game. You could argue he didn't have a passing game. I think that's where Suaalii is going to get to. And then the other thing is about how they're working out their coaching situation. I think the fact that Daniel Holdsworth is in there and he's at the Cronulla Sharks now, at the coalface, working with a team that's very much up to date in what they're doing. I think he's having an increased role in what this Samoan side is doing. So Matt Parrish and Jeff Tuvey leaning on the knowledge that Daniel Holdsworth is bringing out of the Cronulla Sharks. So I think that's really interesting as well. Samoa strike me as a side that they're just going to have to play a power game from a forwards point of view, as opposed to the little subtleties that England can have as well. Did you have a best for this first week, Jared?
I did, Jimmy. I think the other thing to keep in the back of our mind here is that there are showers forecast for Sunday, Monday around most of these grounds. So I think that again favours England. You're right, Samoa will want to play a power game through the middle, but just not sure that they're going to have the, I guess, the current match fitness and game experience of playing in these conditions and all be as pumped up as England. So I do like England as a bet. I do think Australia covered a line against Fiji. 38.5 originally I thought was very low. It's out to 39. I think it'll start 40-something by game time. I think Australia put the cleaners through here, even if it is in damp conditions. And then we wait till Wednesday morning our time next week. I think the other highlight game to have a really good look at is Tonga versus PNG. Currently, Tonga minus 26.5. Again, I think they cover that. I think PNG are being rated on some good international form over the last 12 months, but they're still not at a level with the majority of their team Q Cup players against what I think will be a very strong form lineup from Tonga. The best certainly Australia at the minus 38.5, which was available over the last couple of days. I thought the other game that was interesting, you touched on, Jimmy, was Scotland and Ireland. Certainly I'm with Scotland to win there. And I thought the other one later in the week was France and Greece. The French obviously have Mr. Robinson as an assistant. They showed some patches of good form in the first half of their trial against Tonga. I don't know that Greece can aim up here. 24.5 was the line there. I think France probably go on and cover that. Of the rest, Ireland should look after Jamaica quite comfortably. New Zealand should look after Lebanon comfortably. And I think Cook Islands end up getting over Wales.
Now, I just want to offer a word of caution. Just you talking about that, Gerard, reminded me of the 2013 Rugby League World Cup being played over there in the UK. And so, no, it wasn't, yeah, was it the, anyway, no, 2016, the Four Nations, and Scotland happened to be in there, right? And the line was 43.5. And I thought at 30-6 at halftime, I thought, no worries, this is all straightforward. At that point, Cameron Smith was replaced by Jake Friend in his only Australian appearance. And in the end, the final scoreline, 54 points to 12, left me horribly short of where I needed to be. So just be aware. I mean, there's not too many Cameron Smiths running around out there, but just be aware when you do have a bet, you know, you just need to be really careful about what a coach might do at halftime.
So, Jimmy, are you trying to suggest that you'd like to be on Fiji or PNG for a lunch bet?
No. All I'm saying is that Daly Cherry Evans comes up with 6 try assists in the first half and then gets replaced at half time. Just all I'm saying is just beware. And I'm not being disrespectful to Jake Friend either, right? But that was just getting those combinations working together with the Australian side at the time.
Just remember, Jimmy, over the next couple of days, if that wallet starts to itch in your back pocket, I'm always available.
All right. So you're on at the minus 38.5, which is now 39.5, right, for Australia.
Yes.
I totally agree. I think they'll do it very comfortably against Fiji. I'm going to have a look at the Tonga minus 26.5 for me, Tristan, up against PNG. They did have a trial game against France at the Shea Stadium, which obviously I was over there covering, and they look very impressive, Tonga, very committed, and working off the same sheet too. So I like that as my best of the first week.
Yeah, and the one I'm going to come for is I'm going to suggest that the opening game for Italy, they're going to be a bit more improved than what everyone expected. So I'm going to take the plus 12.5 Italy against Scotland in that game.
Ooh. Okay. The plus 12.5 is your best. All right. Anything else you wanted to look at before we get to some racing around at this early stage of the World Cup, Gerard?
No, Jimmy, there seems to be some breaking news out of Brookvale. Have you put your name in the hat for the job going down there?
No, because I think they've decided who was going to coach before they got rid of the other one. But yes, before we get on to racing, the breaking news that we heard just before we came onto the podcast that Manly have sacked Des Hasler, which was the only way it was going to play out. There was no way, despite what you might read in certain publications, that he was able to work with Anthony Seibold, and I would have thought that Anthony Seibold was no chance of working with Des Hasler in those sort of circumstances. If you signed Des up for that deal, then the only course of action for the Manly club and for Scott Penn, the owner, was to sack him. That's what he's done. Des gets another payout. There's a lot of talk around how upset the Trebojevic brothers are. We'll have to wait and see whether that actually comes to anything. I would be very surprised if it did. But we have a new coach at Manly, and I'm sure that Anthony Seibold will be announced very shortly. So a lot's to unpack around that. But first of all, the situation with Des, Tristan, and then Anthony Seibold, after success at South, lack of success at the Broncos, now back into the coaching crosshairs in only 2 and a bit years.
Yeah, it's a fascinating storyline, and it's amazing how things change in rugby league very rapidly. You only have to think probably 6 or 8 weeks before the end of the season, before the rainbow jersey scenario where they were cruising along very nicely. I think they were well admired by most teams in the comp, that they'd been able to perform as well as what they had with the stark injury list that they had. And then you fast forward it 2.5 months later, and obviously everything's just compounded and unravelled. So I think this was a decision that had to be made. From their point of view, at least it's happened early. They can move into a full pre-season now, knowing exactly what the lay of the land is. Anthony Seibold, is he the answer? I'm not certain, but he obviously, as you said, was successful at Souths, not so much at Brisbane. So we'll see how the playing group of Manly, which you would probably anticipate is a little bit divided at the moment as well. So it'll be interesting if he's got the personality that can really bring the troops together. So I think that's going to be the talking point. We've only got the outright winner market up, which we drifted them from 17 out to 21 on the back of the news. I think it'll be intriguing to see where that top 8 market is priced when we get those markets up after the World Cup.
Well, I think the last 8 weeks has been better than days of our lives or reality television, hasn't it, Jimmy? I mean, day after day after day, there's been leak after leak, and I have to suggest that 90% of them have been fabricated. I'd say that there's probably 6 journos around Sydney at the moment have probably put in for annual leave now for the next 3 weeks, because now this saga's over. There's going to be nothing else for them to pick up as leaks to write about other than the World Cup. It's no surprise this is where it was headed, and thankfully it's all over, and whichever way it unfolds now, Manly are able to get on with a proper pre-season and get stuck into next year. I'll probably sit on the fence about how I think it unfolds next year. I thought Mr. Seibold was very disappointing at the Broncos, and there was so much more that unfolded there that needs to be better for it to work at Brookvale, and we'll wait and see.
Here's a question to you both. Do you see Des Hasler coaching in the NRL again?
Nope.
Yeah, probably not.
I wouldn't discount it. Anyway, time will be the only thing that helps us with that one. All right. Massive racing this weekend, which is absolutely huge across a couple of states. And I know that I think it's been just about waterlogged Melbourne over the course of the last couple of days as well. I think Sydney's due to get something similar, but it is a fabulous time from a racing point of view. Tristan, how are things looking from your point of view?
Yeah, it's a fantastic week of racing. Obviously, we had a good weekend last weekend as well, with unfortunately weather playing its part and us losing a few of those races on Saturday to a couple of the races on this program here at Randwick, and we had the one of the features go to Warwick Farm yesterday. So great racing. Unfortunately, the weather is obviously the deterrent at the moment, but the only difference, I suppose, with that is that we had an autumn last year, or this year, should I say, last carnival, which was something similar. So at least the form lines are a little bit more pronounced, which is, I suppose, a little bit different. In the Everest, it's the key race on the day. Nature Strip drew barrier 12. It drifted from $1.90 out to $2, and it came straight back into $1.90. But now we've seen a drift out to $2.30 and now back into $2.20. The punters have come for Eduardo. $14 into $9. I think Lost and Running is going to be very, very hard to beat. $7.50 into $6.50. And Private Eye, a little bit of value, I think, at $13. That's the key race in Sydney. And then we go to Melbourne, where obviously the Caulfield Cup. I love this race as a lead up to the Melbourne Cup. I love trying to see which horse is charging home at the end of that 2,400 metre race to give us a really good guide for Melbourne Cup, which is only a couple of weeks away now. But this one sees Smoking Romans $4.60 into $4. I'm very keen to take on Smoking Romans. I think when it won last start, it was probably fortunate with how the track played and the bias and those sort of things, which may occur again. But I just think it's firmed up significantly into $4. I just think there's a couple of other horses here that are massive overs and a big chance of getting a result. Horses like Gold Trip, Knight's Order, and Numerian are the ones that I think are all in play. So can't wait for the weekend of racing. Hopefully the weather is as good as we can hope, and we get full all 10 races at both states.
Well, I guess the really good news is that I didn't see King's Trust in the acceptances this weekend. So there's one that we can. Did it go to England with you, Jimmy? Or
no, been out, back in training though.
Oh,
yeah. We spelled it for 12 days, and then it was back in training.
He probably sent you a letter on the 11th day to say what's going on. I'm not still in work. Well, I'm on the same page on one of these with Tristan. In Sydney, I did think Lost and Running looked a great bet at somewhere around $6.50 to $7 in the Everest. His two return runs, or most recent runs, have just been outstanding. Some of the sections he's run on very wet tracks, he just looks absolutely primed, ready to go. And I think he gets a nice sit stalking the speed there. Down in Melbourne, well, I'm happy to take you on, Tristan. I thought Smoking Romans was my best of the week, and certainly my $100 outlay bet in the Caulfield Cup. $4.60 looked big to me yesterday. It's in the $4 now. I think it actually probably starts much closer to $3 by race time on Saturday afternoon. I think he's come back at another level and just lifted and lifted. The stable will tell you he's bigger and stronger and really filled out. He'll go forward and get a lovely spot from that gate. And with Jamie Carr on his back and a very light weight of only 51.5 in the Cup, and form at this track, won 3 times at 2,500. Certainly my best for the week.
That has lunch bet written all over it, gentlemen, doesn't it?
Well, I'm certainly happy to oppose. I feel as though Jared might need to add a little clause in there, because obviously a $4 shot is a little bit different to an even money. So how do you want to play this, Jared? Because I'm certainly happy to oppose you.
Well, I guess your advantage is you're going to have 23 others running for you, and I've only got one running for me. But yeah, listen, I'm happy to have a lunch bet around him.
Why don't you throw another runner in there? You can have 2.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, all right. I'll take Benno as well.
Benno as well. All right, very good. Well, there you go. You got Benno and Smoking Romans as your 2, and we'll have a lunch bet on it. That sounds like a bit of fun.
It does.
Nice. All right, now I'm going to go to Randwick. I'm going to go to race number 7. That's also known as the Everest. I'm going to go to number 3, Lost and Running.
Oh,
dear.
Yeah. So I'm going to go staking plan all important in this one, as we know, gentlemen. The old 25.75. Thank you. At the 650, 220.
Yeah, I hope he's strong and he ate up well this week, and he's ready to go, because he's carrying all 3 of us.
He is. So yeah, every time I heard a more further compliment from you guys with Lost and Running, I think, oh, hang on, should I jump off? No, yeah, rock solid. So explain the 220, the drift. What is it? The track? What with Nature Strip, Tristan?
Oh, I just think it you know, as much as the J-Max come out and said he's not concerned by the barrier, you can't have a horse at $1.90 pre the barrier draw and it draws barrier 12 and it firms. Like, that just can't happen. And I think the race is quality. Obviously, you know, it's a fantastic horse, probably if not the best, one of the best horses in the country. But it's come back from overseas. It's I just think there's got to be risk there. And as a bookmaker in a race of this magnitude, if you can't lay your favourite in this scenario, you should be doing something else. So we're certainly going to be putting it in. The money's been one-way traffic for it, but I just think the field's a little bit tighter than that. I personally had Lost and Running rated a $5 shot. So it was a lot higher early. It was at 750 early doors, and it's firmed up a bit. So I just think, Nature Strip a very clear favourite, but it's just nowhere near the odds-on quote that it was when markets opened.
Well, I think the other key point around Nature Strip too is that when he won this race last year, and when he's won his best Group 1s, he's been able to be given a breather off a good map, somewhere between 1,000 to the 600, and then accelerate. From 12, with the speed that's drawn inside him, I don't know that he's going to get that little gap of 400 to 500 metres where he doesn't have the foot to the pedal before he then wants to accelerate. And under that pressure, I think if you're a bookmaker, you certainly would be taking him on. Lost and Running gets a nice map. His sectionals have been outstanding. His only worry now is he's got to carry Jimmy.
It's a significant worry too. Don't worry about that. All right, gentlemen, I think we've got the weekend sorted, right? I think we're covered across the Rugby League World Cup. We've got the racing worked out. No problems there whatsoever. And I think everyone's going to enjoy it. And then we will be back at a similar time next week. So now we've got the one lunch bets on. So we've got Gerard head-to-head with Tristan in that one, which is all good. Otherwise, we're on the hustings, and we're looking to raise some more money for Pass It On clothing. So enjoy your weekend, guys. I'm sure you will, and we'll speak next week.
Speak next week, guys.
Take care, gentlemen.